After laying down a clunky but promising foundation with its first UFC game in 2014, EA Vancouver has done a respectable job of iterating and improving on each new entry over the last 6 years. In keeping with that tradition, EA Sports UFC 4 focuses on making its many complex systems a little less intimidating for newcomers without ever taking away from the depth of its multi-layered combat, most notably with a new grapple assist system and a much improved career mode. Some of the larger ambitions of career mode fall a bit flat, and the ground game still feels like it could use some work, but all things considered, UFC 4 is a win for MMA fans. UFC 3 made some big power moves by dramatically revamping the entire striking system, but UFC 4 is more about finesse. It makes small but necessary adjustments like the way it tweaks the clinch game. It's now much more fluid and works more like a natural extension of the stand-up combat rather than its own separate minigame. There are no more transition denials on the feet, and all you have to do to break free is move away. With this new system, you can very organically go from strike to clinch, and from there decide whether you want to attack the head, attack the body, or push the opponent up against the cage. For some fighters, you can even go for a standing submission a la John Jones vs. Lyoto Machida.
He got it done.
Oh, he got it done, absolutely. He finishes his opponent by way of submission.
The other big change this time around is with submissions, which have actually been split into two different types of minigames, one for chokes and one for joint submissions. Both minigames are essentially a race to be the first to either fill up the submit meter or the escape meter. Erratically spinning the stick or mashing the buttons makes the defender's bar bigger, rewarding more careful and thoughtful cat-and-mouse style mind games than prior iterations. Also, you can now do a freaking Von Flue choke by countering a guillotine. I know if you don't follow MMA, you probably don't have any idea what that means, but trust me, it's awesome. And it provides a nice risk-reward balance for those attempting a submission while on their back. Finally, EA Vancouver has also introduced a grapple assist system for those who might not know their full guards from their half guards, their side controls from their full mounts, or their rubber guards from their mouth guards. When using grapple assist, instead of transitioning to specific positions while on the ground, you can just choose to transition based on what it is you want to do. It's not ideal, but for those who are just picking up UFC for the first time, it's a great shortcut to start having fun without having someone explain to them what all the different positions mean, which ones have submissions, and which ones you can get up from. Of course, you can also choose to play with a legacy control scheme or a new hybrid that combines the two, allowing you to transition to specific positions with the right stick and use the more general assist transitions with the left stick, which is a nice compromise. Outside of those big changes and a couple of small control adjustments, the gameplay in UFC 4 is largely the same as UFC 3, which for the most part is fine. That said, the ground game still feels largely unsatisfying in UFC 4. Ground and pound strikes still lack impact. The guessing game of transitions and transition denials is still incredibly unintuitive without the guide arrows, which are removed in online play regardless of whether you're playing casually or in ranked. And there's still very little in the way of feedback to let you know why you lost a position or why your opponent's transition beat out yours. There's still work to be done to get the ground game up to the level of the striking.
Hello? Anybody home? What, you daydreaming again? Number of times I've seen you looking up at this wall. I told you you'd make it to the big show. Now here we are.
UFC 4 successfully treats its career mode as an introduction to get new players very quickly up to speed with the basics. After getting your ass kicked in your very first amateur fight, you're taken under the wing of Coach Davis, a fictional former UFC fighter who walks you through an extended tutorial that crucially follows up each lesson with a fight centered around the concept you just learned. After that, it's very much like UFC 3. You get a fight offer, you choose how to spend your 100 weekly points leading up to it, and then you fight. The best new change this year is in the fighter evolution system that improves your moves the more you use them, letting you craft a fighter that truly feels unique to your style. There's a lot of stat building and decision making that takes place in between fights, but thankfully it's all time well spent, because you really do see the effects of your training paying off. It also helps that the training itself is fun, since it's mostly 2-minute sparring sessions, even if it's a little too easy to knock your training partners out cold.
Hey, it's starting to fall apart.
I'm less impressed by the emphasis on choice in the story, which feels a little half-baked. Occasionally throughout your career, you'll be given opportunities to choose how you respond to certain social media posts from fighters, or how you react to certain events like a fighter pulling out of a fight due to injury. There is a gameplay element to it all in that if you have a bad relationship with the fighter, you won't be able to invite them to your gym and learn one of their signature moves. But the trade-off is that when you potentially fight them down the line, there will be more hype to it. The problem is, none of that really made much of a difference because there are already so many other fighters to invite to your gym, and the fighters that I did start beef with early on never resurfaced once I started climbing the ranks. A big historical problem for the UFC series has been the unpredictable difficulty spikes once you get into title contention, which is thankfully not an issue in UFC 4. The difficulty remains relatively consistent all throughout, and while there's definitely a leap in difficulty once you reach the upper echelon of a division, it never feels unfair. It also helps that you can set your difficulty level right from the start and change it as you see fit, and you can choose whether you want to retry a fight or accept the consequences of a loss and continue on. So here's some good news. UFC 4 removes the sleazy microtransaction-driven Ultimate Team mode, and even though it doesn't replace it with anything nearly as substantial, there are at least a couple of fun new stages that are refreshingly different. There's a new backyard arena that feels especially fitting for cover athlete Jorge Masvidal, along with a very Bloodsport-inspired Kumite arena. There's also a new Blitz mode that features a rotating rule set that changes every few hours, which is a fun idea and a nice distraction from the more hardcore online modes. And they got Daniel Cormier to replace Joe Rogan on commentary.
John, don't you come to me without a combo. I want the whole platter. Give him the whole platter, young man. Put some punches together.
Lastly, while UFC 4 still looks pretty good, it's a little disappointing to see that so little has changed in the last 6 years. While there are a few new animations added into the mix, these are largely the same takedowns, slams, and strikes that we've seen before. There's a little bit more face deformation, but knockouts are still lacking a certain magic that the Fight Night series captured a console generation ago. EA Sports UFC 4 is a largely iterative sequel that tightens up some looser parts, makes a few smart tweaks here and there, and doesn't rock the boat all too much. The new submission system is a big improvement over prior years, and there are great changes to career mode that make it much more fun to mold a fighter that suits your own playstyle. The new grapple assist system is a great tool to help complete newcomers not feel lost if they get taken down, and as a whole, the fighting system remains incredibly deep. Long-standing problems still remain in the ground game and some dated visuals, but without any competition for the title, EA Sports UFC 4 still remains the king of combat sports. For more UFC 4, check out our gameplay video of Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.